Most people say you need a team. They say you can't make it on your own. They'll tell you success takes support, connections, networks, and they're not wrong. But here's what they never say out loud. The strongest journeys, they start alone. The greatest warriors, they train in empty dojos. The sharpest minds, forged in silence. The most unbreakable spirits, built in the dark, when no one's watching. This isn't about isolation forever. It's about solitude. The forge where fire and steel collide, where you're shaped into something extraordinary. Look back at history. Every legend you admire walked this path. A season of silence, a chapter of pure, brutal focus. They walked away from the noise to find their edge. No applause, no spotlight. They built in the dark. Why? Because solitude breeds power. When you're alone, you learn how to stand, not just physically, but in truth, in integrity, in pain, in purpose. When there's no one to lean on, you stop waiting for rescue. You become the rescuer. You don't ask, will someone help me? You ask, how far can I go on my own? And yes, it's lonely. It's hard. You'll doubt yourself. You'll wonder if you're crazy, but deep down, you'll know. This is exactly where you're meant to be, because every silent step, every quiet rep, every morning you rise without praise, you're building something no one can give you. Self-reliance. Not the hashtag version, the real kind. The kind built in quiet mornings and hard nights, in breakdowns that don't get posted, in battles no one sees, and you keep going anyway. You start showing up, not because someone's watching, but because you are. That's confidence, not the kind born from compliments, but the kind that stays. When everything else falls apart, you stop waiting for permission. You move like a storm. You don't need validation. Remember what Bain said? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. That's solitude. It molds you, burns away the weakness, forces you to face your thoughts, forces you to lead yourself. And that is the beginning of power. But here's the truth, no one puts on highlight reels. Every success story has a middle chapter, and it's not glamorous, it's not loud, it's not fun, it's silent, brutal, lonely. It's the part that breaks most people. It's the space between the beginning and the breakthrough, where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. You've outgrown your past, but haven't stepped fully into your future, and it's painful. Your friends don't recognize you. They mock your focus. They question your silence. They say you've changed. And they're right. You have. But they don't say what they're really thinking. You're evolving. And it makes them uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're doing what they're afraid to do. You're rising. And every step you take reminds them of the ones they're avoiding. This middle chapter, it's not just lonely because you're alone. It's lonely because you're leaving behind the version of yourself that kept you safe, but also kept you small. You're shedding your skin, grieving a life that no longer fits, walking through the fire of your own transformation, and no one can do that part for you. It's just you. You, in the silence. You, in the doubt. You, in the slow, steady burn of rebirth. And when you emerge from that fire, you won't just be better. You'll be reborn, untouchable, unshakable, unstoppable. This is the part where most people turn back, not because they're weak, but because the middle chapter feels endless. It's the chapter with no applause, no recognition, no sign. It's all going to work out. But if you're here right now, if you're in that silent space, if you're feeling the pull to retreat, don't. This isn't a detour. It's not a mistake. This is the path. That discomfort you feel. It's the exact signal you're stepping out of who you were and into who you're meant to be. And if you can keep walking, when no one understands, when no one claps, when the voice inside whispers, maybe you should just go back, but you don't. Then you'll emerge with something most people never find. A self that was forged in fire. A soul that knows its own strength. A story that no one can take from you. Because you didn't just arrive, you endured. And when you finally stand at the top, you'll remember the silence that shaped you. You'll remember the empty rooms, the early mornings, the doubt-filled nights, and you'll know exactly why you made it, because you were willing to walk through the part most people avoid. That's why you'll never go back. Most people quit here, not because they're lazy, not because they didn't want it bad enough, but because this part, it's quiet. No one cheers when you stay home to study. No one applauds when you hit the gym at 5 a.m. in the dark. No one sees you say no to the party. No camera rolls when you sacrifice comfort for growth. It's just you. You and the silence. You and the weight of everything you've outgrown. You're building yourself, brick by brick. But no one sees that part. And that's what makes it so hard. Because deep down, we all want to be understood. We all want someone to say, "I see you. I get it. Keep going." But in this chapter, that rarely happens. You'll look around and realize you're not like most people anymore. The conversations hit different. The jokes don't land. You feel distant from the world you used to belong to. And the temptation to go back, it creeps in quietly. Maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I should just be more normal. Because normal feels safe. Normal is accepted. Normal is liked. So most people, good people, they go back. Back to comfort. Back to habits they swore they'd outgrow. Back to being liked by people they no longer relate to. And for a moment it feels okay. Familiar. Safe. But deep down, something starts to ache. A quiet voice whispers, "You gave up too soon." Because here's the hard truth. This lonely middle chapter, it's not a mistake. It's not a glitch. It is the path. The silence. The doubt. The disconnection. It's not a sign you're lost. It's a sign you're finally on the real road. Every champion walks through this tunnel. Every warrior. Every leader. Every visionary. There is no version of greatness that skips this part. So if you're here, if the nights are long, if the silence is loud, if you're starting to wonder, is this even working? Let me tell you the truth. That is your sign you're doing it right. This is what transformation really looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not filtered. It's not curated for Instagram. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It's powerful. Because right now, when nobody's watching, you're building something the world can't see yet. You're forming a kind of strength most people will never understand. You're developing habits that will carry you long after motivation fades. You're becoming the version of you that your future life will require. So don't mistake this silence for failure. It's not failure. It's the sound of real progress, happening in real time. And one day, when the world finally sees what you've become, when they admire your strength, your calm, your discipline, they'll wonder how you did it, and you'll smile. Because you'll remember, you walked through the middle chapter when most people turned around. They won't know what it took to get there, but you will, because you walked through the tunnel and you didn't turn back. So now, keep going, because the next part, this is where you start becoming undeniable. We live in a world obsessed with shortcuts. Get a mentor, follow this formula, buy this system, and success is guaranteed. Look, I'm not against guidance, but somewhere along the way, we forgot the power of figuring it out yourself. Everyone wants a map. No one wants to take the machete and cut their own way through the jungle. And that's the problem. Because when you outsource all your thinking, when you wait for someone else to tell you when to start, how to move, what to believe, you never build the one thing that actually transforms a life: internal strength. Real power is built in silence. When you train without a spotter, when no one's there to catch the bar, no one yelling one more rep, no one clapping when you finish. You either crumble or you become unshakable. That's where grit is forged, not on stage, but in solitude. When the only person holding you up is you. When you win with no witnesses. When you achieve something and there's no applause. That's when you find a new kind of fuel, your own fire. The motivation stops being external. It becomes personal. You stop needing praise. You stop waiting to be seen. You do it for something deeper, because you refuse to stay average. When you suffer in silence and keep going anyway, When you crawl through your darkest nights without complaining, that's when toughness is born. Not the performative kind, not the social media kind, but the kind of grit that can't be bought, that no coach, no system, no group chat can give you. David Goggins said it best, "No one helped me get there. No one paid my bills. No one ran those miles. I suffered on my own and developed this man." That's not ego. That's evolution. It's what happens when you stop waiting for someone to save you and decide to become your own savior. You take ownership. You take the hits. You don't flinch. You rebuild. You look in the mirror and say, "This is all I've got, so I'll make it enough." That's a kind of power most will never know, because most people never walk that road. But you're not most people. You're not becoming reliant. You're becoming resilient. And that difference, that's everything. There's something sacred about training at 3 a.m., not because the hour is magical, but because of what it means. The world is asleep, and you're not. Everyone else is dreaming. You're building. No noise, no distractions, just the hum of silence and the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Every drop of sweat becomes a vow. Every rep, every page, every painful step, a silent promise. I'm not here to be like them, because there's a difference between working hard and working in the dark. And the dark, it doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't reward you instantly. It humbles you. It isolates you. And it transforms you. Yes, they'll call you crazy. They'll say you're obsessed, too intense, too committed, too far gone. Let them. They laugh now, because they don't understand. They don't hear the war in your chest. They don't see the version of you that's rising in silence. Let them sleep. Let them mock. Let them stay soft. Because while they chase comfort, you're chasing greatness, mastery, power, freedom. And none of that is found in ordinary routines. If you want what the average man fears, you have to do what the average man avoids. If you want to rise above the noise, you must first learn how to thrive in silence. So wake up at 3 a.m. train, when no one's watching. Work in the shadows, because when the light comes, you won't just shine, you'll blind them. But there's a brutal truth you need to understand. People want you to succeed, but not more than them. When you're struggling, they'll cheer you on. Go for your dreams, they'll say. But start winning. Start shining. Watch how the tone changes. Oh, you've changed. Must be nice. Think you're better now? People love the underdog, but they resent the champion. And that's why you must become your own biggest supporter. Because the crowd's approval? Temporary. But your self-belief? That has to be permanent. You want to find your true self? Go be alone. No distractions. No filters. No noise. Just you and you. Most people avoid that, because they're afraid of what they'll find inside. But you're different. You're here, because something in you is ready. You're here because your soul is asking for more. Every time you train alone, suffer in silence, work without credit, you are building something rare. A foundation no one can shake. An identity no one can take. That's why the higher you rise, the fewer companions you have. The air gets thinner at the top. Not everyone will make the sacrifices. Not everyone will walk away from comfort. But you will. And that's what makes you different. Distraction is easy. Depth is rare. And solitude. It's the only place where deep work really happens. No notifications. No small talk. No outside validation. Just mastery. This is how you compress years into months. This is how you separate without announcing it. While the world scrolls, you build. When there's no one watching, that's when self-motivation becomes your superpower. You push without praise. You rise without reward. You move without why. Because it's who you are. And when the moment finally comes, when the world finally notices, you won't even need the applause. Because you were already built in the dark. Kobe Bryant said, "Obsession comes in the small details nobody pays attention to." You've been stacking those details in silence. Now you're ready to rise in power. So here's your reminder, the one the world won't give you. You don't need anyone to clap for you. You don't need anyone to post about your effort. You don't need anyone to tell you you're on the right path. Because you already know. You don't need validation to be valuable. You don't need applause to stay committed. And you sure as hell don't need permission to rise. What you need is courage to face the silence, discipline to keep showing up, vision to remember where you're going, even when no one else sees it, because most won't understand your journey. They'll question your silence. They'll misread your focus. They'll call your sacrifice extreme. But that's fine. They don't see what you see. They don't feel what you feel. They don't carry the fire you carry. And most of all, they're not willing to walk alone. But you are. That's what separates you. Anyone can talk when the crowd is cheering. Anyone can move when the path is smooth. But very few will keep walking when it's silent, cold, and thankless. And that is where greatness is born. In the emptiness. In the quiet suffering. In the moments when nobody's watching. But you show up anyway. Because you don't need the world to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself. Every early morning you drag yourself out of bed. That's belief. Every night you grind while others sleep. That's belief. Every time you resist comfort and choose discipline, you're not just building skill. You're forging a weapon. You're becoming something the world can't ignore. Because the empty gym, the silent mornings, the lonely grind, they're not signs of failure. They are the fire that will shape your edge. The world will only see the result. But you know the process. And that's why you'll win. Do it alone now, so you can stand apart later. Your mind is your greatest weapon. Now train it like one.